We're very close to the end, but it looks like we still have a little longer left to go. I thought this episode really set up the foreshadowing necessary to resolve the issue in the next and final episode. I won't go into details though to keep this commentary spoiler free. This is a mystery after all, and to spoil the true culprit of a mystery is a crime worthy of improvement. I think the complex relationship between seniors and juniors was once again a major theme in this episode. We could see it in Araragi and Shinobu reversing roles, Shinobu and Deathtopia reuniting, the discussions about fan clubs and their idols. At the beginning of the episode, Araragi expresses concern that Shinobu might sacrifice herself for her master's sake. It made me think of the basketball team and perhaps how their personal sacrifices are to some degree a result of wanting to preserve the legacy their seniors left behind. Shinobu says she will not sacrifice herself, but she would like to act as a master for just one night. She seems to want to impress her former master, which also correlates to another motivation for the junior members of the basketball club to put themselves through such rigorous training. They don't want to let their seniors down. But of course, all that really did was stir up resentment in their case. So let's take a look at the dark side of this kind of relationship. During Araragi's and Karen's conversation about the Kambaru fan club, Karen points out that fans are quite fickle. They don't necessarily stick around and can move on quickly. Seemingly unrelated but actually relevant, she also talks a bit about Tsukihi. Though younger, Tsukihi seems to think that she does not need her older sister anymore and can handle the activities of the Fire Sisters on her own. Karen hints at the unstable nature of senior-junior relationships, in this case between siblings, and the possibility of betrayal. Even she seems to be a bit colder to Araragi in this episode than we've seen in the past. Perhaps now that she's growing up, she's not as affectionate towards her older brother. Poor Araragi. But back to the more heartwarming portrayal of a master-thrall relationship. This episode finally reunites the two friends from 600 years ago, an unnatural reunion of two unnatural beings. And Deathtopia's revival scene is intense. Breaking free from her confinement, bared fully to the world, laughing dementedly upon opening her eyes, all of that really raises the suspense levels as Araragi, and presumably the audience, waits with bated breath to see what will happen next. But when she smiles at Shinobu and delivers her now classic catchphrase, it becomes clear that this is simply their way of recognizing each other. It is more like a harmless inside joke than a real threat. Once again, things are flipped on their head. Nothing is as it appears. I think that's very intentional, and Nisio Isin has deliberately set up red herrings and decoys even while he's providing hints. Now, right before Deathtopia's revival, Araragi and Shinobu were deep in conversation. I want to talk about two major talking points. When she reunites with Deathtopia, Shinobu makes a tongue-in-cheek comment that they've both grown. Of course, this is ironic on the surface because they have both actually reverted to being young girls. It is even more ironic considering she mentioned just a few moments again in her conversation with Araragi that vampires, as oddities, are naturally unchanging. They do not grow, they do not change, they do not mature, unlike humans. Araragi, as a human, acknowledges how much he's changed during this year. He started out principally opposed to making friends, but is now able to form a natural relationship with a classmate in college. On a tangent, I thought showing all the covers of the previous seasons in the series was a clever way of showing the Monogatari timeline. It might also serve as a good watch order guide. Anyway, that's where Shinobu acknowledges their essential differences, since she would never change at the core of her being. But this seems to contradict what we've already seen of her throughout the series. She went from master to servant, vampire to shadow, and suicidal to wanting to live for someone else's sake. Like Ononoki in Phoenix Undo, she may be in denial. Just like how haircuts represent the mortal character's growth, Shinobu's changing appearance has always expressed her own development. So perhaps in telling Deathtopia that they've both grown, she's subconsciously acknowledging her own conflicting feelings during all this time. Araragi's and Shinobu's conversation ends on a simple question. Araragi wants to know what Shinobu thinks of humans now. In the past, she'd only considered them food, but a lot has happened since spring break. And she hesitates this time to answer, though that's partially due to Gaian's interruption. Deathtopia's revival disrupting Araragi's and Shinobu's conversation at that time seems to be a sign that further clarification on that will come later with Deathtopia. Will the answer be the same as it was during spring break? Are humans just food to vampires? And in that case, what are vampires to humans? Especially humans like Araragi and Hanekawa, who both stumbled upon a vampire during spring break. I hope you'll be anticipating the answers to all these questions as much as I'll be anticipating the conclusion of the season next week. It seems this arc will go on for as long as predicted after all.